I love you. I was just on the cruise about a month ago. Abraham said, you will be shifted whether you like it or not. And I did. It shifted me even more so I can get myself right back in when I pop out and not beat myself up with that. My question is, and I read a little bit about it in the book that they gave us on the cruise with Wayne Dyer and Abraham, because I do a number of things. I'm in AA and I also do Course in Miracles and things like that. So I do believe I'm in an illusion, so to speak. And I know that this isn't my true self here, that this is just a part of my consciousness, if I'm right.
Part of your consciousness. You can get into the receiving mode and be your true self.
Right.
And that's the best of all of it. When you allow who you really are to radiate who you are in this physical body, that's what you came for.
Exactly. So do we, and I know you address this in the book, so we've been here, I feel, many times. And
that's true, but it's also irrelevant.
Right. Do we make contracts with people that we're here with? In other words...
yeah, you come in clusters. You have a lot of intentionality. You set a lot of goals with a lot of people. Yes.
Okay. So I feel that. So here's my biggest dilemma. I'm constantly working to stay satisfied and in the vortex and leave my children alone.
Well, if you're constantly working, then you haven't really accomplished it yet, because once you get it, it isn't work. It's just natural.
Yeah, well, and I'm always trying to get myself back in, and it seems that when everything seems to be going good, I don't know whether it's that rascal or whatever we call it, the ego, whatever. So in other words, let's go with someone from my past, say my ex-husband of 22 years. I don't go around, I don't go near the person, I try to stay and just hold love and light, and I pray awakening for everybody and forgiveness of everything, because there's nothing to forgive.
Well, you know, when you focus on someone you're trying to forgive, you focus right upon what they need to be forgiven for, and then you're no longer in the state of allowing, and you're right back where you are, and you just renewed your anger.
Yeah, so that's my question. How do you, when I think I'm chugging along really good, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, it's probably, I'm sure it's not out of the blue.
It's out of the oblivious.
Out of the oblivious, it comes in, that person comes in and does something or says something, and I'm back to feeling unworthy or whatever it is, that I made mistakes or something like that.
Well, sometimes what happens, and what you're describing, let's just talk about something that most everyone lived. You were in a house with different people than you now live with. And let's say they were your parents or whoever they were in your early life experience. And you had experiences with them which you now continue to remember. Well, remembering is just activating a vibration. Your brain isn't a storage cabinet full of things. Your brain is a transmitting and receiving mechanism. So something in your now has triggered something that is a vibrational match to that, so it lights up and you remember that. Here's an easier way to say this to you. Let's say that something happened, as you said, 22 years ago with someone else. So you have the experience of that. And let's say it was an experience that you didn't like. And then let's say you get on with your life and you live more in your now and you're looking forward to more things and you're feeling better and better as you are. And then let's say that that person comes back into your life, maybe a letter, maybe a phone call, maybe walks right in, maybe you're sharing custody of your children with them, doesn't matter. So they come back into your experience. This is where this new approach that we were offering here today would really serve you. You have to remember that when you were creating together, you taught him things about yourself, and he taught you things about himself. And perhaps, in fact, usually, you were not back then really under the influence of source energy. You were under the influence of whatever. So let's say you were having a bad experience together then. So that's what he remembers, and that's what you remember. Well, let's say that you've been listening to us or others, and you've come into alignment, and you're feeling good, and you're not harboring any of those old resentful thoughts, meaning they're not active in you. You're feeling good in your world, and then that person comes back into your experience because you've invited them through children. And they, let's say, haven't been meditating, haven't been basking in life, haven't been appreciating, are not in touch, hardly ever, and certainly not constantly, with their source energy. But let's say you have been doing pretty good at that. In fact, you're really quite good at that. And there they are, and you're looking at them, and they're looking at you, and they're remembering you as they made you out to be then, because everybody has a perception of everything. They never saw you as you really were. They saw you through their own lens. They made up who you were to them. In fact, who you were to them was more about who their mother was to them than who you are being to them, usually. In other words, they have already decided who you are, and they have never stopped deciding that that's who you are. So they've got quite a bit of momentum going about who they perceive you to be, and now you're looking at them. And they're remembering who they remember you to be. Their perception of you hasn't changed at all. So this is the question that we have for you. In that moment, whose influence are you going to be under? You're going to be under the influence of your inner being. You're going to be under the influence of their perception of you. It really is as simple as that. Unless you've practiced being under the influence of your inner being, and if you haven't been practicing being satisfied about this and that and the other, then you might be sort of wobbly on that point. And since you don't see that person very often, the minute you see them, you might be moving back into some memories of what they were. And so as you remember what they did to you, and they see you as they, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but pretty fast, you find yourself under the influence of who you are. So you're not feeling satisfied, you're feeling defensive. We would like to take the emotional scale and all of those emotions that you might describe as negative emotion, like depression or fear or rage or anger or guilt or blame. We would like to say, try with us just a little bit here to simplify it. Do I feel satisfied or do I feel blameful? Do I feel satisfied or do I feel angry? Not trying to find the opposite emotion to blame. Just that simple. Am I satisfied or am I mad? Am I satisfied or am I blameful? Am I satisfied or am I guilty? Because once you start just acknowledging moment by moment, you're going to establish your satisfaction zone. You're going to be so under the influence of your inner being that you'll be like Jesus, where you're mostly under the influence of your inner being, so much so that someone could stand before you dripping an obvious illness, and you would not be under the influence of their illness. You would instead be under the influence of what you'd practiced being under the influence, and you would know their wellness even though it wasn't evident. And then their illness could not even abide in your vibration. And so if you're under the influence of your inner being, maybe because you haven't thought about that person, because that part of your life is not relevant to this part of your life. It was relevant in this sense. It caused you to want more. It caused you to create more. And now you've lined up to more. And now you are more. But you don't ever have to go back to those influences. There are a lot of people who stand before you and they're loud and they're sure. In other words, your parents remember you when you were insecure. Your parents even fostered in you a dependency. They really believed that they needed to take care of you. And so you sort of created that relationship. I'm the old and the wise one, and you're the new and the dumb one, and you're insecure and I'm secure and I'll take care of you. That was the basis of most relationships. And for the most part, your parents never stopped feeling that way about you. And so you grew up, you stood on your own 2 feet, you showed yourself and others what you could do, and then you go home for a family vacation and you start acting just like you used to act when you were home, because that's how they remember you more, and you're under the influence of them instead of under the influence of who you have become. Does that make sense?
It really does. So
every relationship that you've ever lived, there was you and them in your physical body, and there was you and them in terms of your non-physical, and then there was a relationship that you had with your inner being and they had with their inner being, and it varied depending on the subject. So everybody that you know and you too are a sort of mixed bag of potential. So if you walk in not practiced in your alignment, there's all kinds of stuff that could get stirred up, and then you've just brought it forward into your now. Different places, different faces moving through your life experience, but sort of the same old experiences that you're having with most people, because you set the tone early on and you keep regurgitating the ugly floor year after year after year.
yes.
Yeah.
Because he literally woke me up 8 years ago and he said, I don't like you. And I said, okay. And I started getting more into my course and then into my AA. And then, of course, I find Abraham, which I had heard 10 years ago, but I wasn't ready. And it helped me. And then the thing, when I came off the cruise, I was shifted into a place of being able to pop out of the vortex but come back in real quicker. And It's funny you said that about the Jesus, because I'm saying something to my son on the phone, and he said, is this some guy that walked the earth that said turn the other cheek? How about that? Because, he just doesn't, as soon as you see that, you go off to a wobble, or whatever it is you call it in your spiritual practice. And that makes then a guilt come into me, and I have to I pop myself back. And I did know from you teaching me to meditate. I do all the time.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Okay.
And don't try too hard to figure it out. You've all heard a lot of things, and you've all lived a lot of things, and some of it you've brought forward and it helps you, and some of it you've brought forward and it isn't helping you. But in this moment, right here and now, where all of your power is, your relationship with your inner being is what must be paramount. And once you have practiced yourself into pretty steady alignment, then people from your past won't be able to reactivate what used to be there. They may not accept you as being different, but you won't respond to them.
And this does work. I was talking to the woman who was in the seat earlier, just out in the hallway, and I was saying, the people talking about their kids when your kids are younger or whatever, mine are grown, and because I do my meditation and I listen to Abraham every day and I stay centered, I shut my mouth. I just shut my mouth, shut my mouth, shut my mouth, hold the light, shut my mouth, hold the light, be aligned. And a daughter that hated me has now become one of my good friends and actually said, you're the only one that seems to be there for me, where maybe 7 months ago she was like, I don't hate anyone as much as I hate you, so here we go. It works. It works. It really does.
Well, let's make it easier. Let's not make it about anybody else. Let's just make it about ourselves. And let's make it about our self-relationship with our broader self. And let's get that vibration going. And let's be the influencing uplifters that we are born to be. And then let's let everybody respond to us in the way they can. And let's not us get twirled up in their response, because we can't control that. So you said it so well. If you don't try to get in there and fix it, then you don't join their influence, and so you stay in your clarity and in your power. And if they want alignment, and every one of them does, they'll join you there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.